The secrets will kill a family system.
Yep.
They will destroy the fabric in the family. And when she said it out loud, he visibly began to shake all over. What I often hear from families is, I wish I'd said something then, but I didn't know what to say.
Good morning and welcome to our inaugural podcast, Finding New Waters. My name is Graham Doerge and I'm the founder and CEO of New Waters Recovery in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm joined here today by our medical director, Dr. Harold Hong, and Frances Murchison from Whole Family Interventions. Frances is a professional certified interventionist, recovery coach, life coach, and holistic health coach. In addition, Frances is an author, speaker, retreat leader, and a yoga instructor with 35 years of sobriety. Frances believes addiction is a family disease, which is exhibited in her work as a coach. Her mission is to help individuals and families make grace-filled changes toward health and well-being so that they can live a life of recovery, resilience, and wholeness. Frances has published 2 books, Breathe, See, Nourish, Energize, A Pathway to Healing, and Heal Your Whole Body, the 12-day power plan to flush toxins, balance hormones, and reset your body's most essential organ. Our goal in creating Finding New Waters is to create a resource for families to help navigate the complexities of supporting a loved one struggling with substance use dependence or mental health. The fact of the matter is that when we find ourselves in crisis due to one of these issues, most people have no idea what direction to turn. My hope is that we can help shed some light into what can be many families' darkest hour. And Frances, thank you for joining us today. Obviously, always a pleasure to get to see your face and spend a little bit of time with you. And I'll just start with like a little bit of background. Frances and I actually met years ago at the Arise intervention training up at Cumberland Heights up in Nashville. So I kind of saw her starting this journey, and it's just been amazing to see it all transpire, and all the amazing work that you're doing up to this point is really incredible. So thanks for coming today.
It's a privilege to be here with you. I'm so proud of what you've accomplished here, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. So, wanted to start out today, with a couple questions. I know that you just got off a flight from doing an intervention, right? And
I did.
Obviously that's kind of the core of what you're doing these days. So can you tell us a little bit about not, in particular the intervention that you just were a part of, but, maybe the intervention process and, what families need to kind of learn about what an intervention is, and just give us a little bit of background on kind of the mechanics of that process.
Can do.
Yeah.
I think the first thing that I want to say is that the way Whole Families orchestrates interventions is nothing like the show. And that there is a preconceived notion among many families that it is a meeting that is confrontational and can feel quite shaming to the identified person, often a loved one. And I am passionately committed to the concept that the meeting itself is a meeting of love, it's a meeting of truth, and it's a meeting of kindness, and it's solution-based.
Yep.
So the way it begins is often the call that I get is often the last gasp that the family has to try to help their loved one. I am truly the last house on the block. If I'm getting the call, they've tried, in their mind, everything else.
Yep.
So it's often a call of desperation.
Yeah.
And what I tell families is that often it is the case that we don't get better, we don't ask for help, we don't want to get help until I, as an addicted person, have come to the end of my rope. I've hit my bottom. But I also believe that interventions are when the family has hit their bottom and when they are suffering enough to say, we're done and we need help. And often that is exactly what I say to the identified person the minute we walk in the door is your family reached out to me because they are suffering and they don't know how to help you.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be here to offer you a solution.
Right.
So the process begins by someone in the family reaching out to me and saying, my loved one is suffering. How do I get them to treatment? How do I get them to start this road to recovery? And one of the first things that I ask this person is, do you have a line in the sand that you're willing to draw if this person in your life whom you love or have loved, maybe they're at their end of their rope too, do you have a line in the sand if they don't go?
Right.
Because if they don't have a clear boundary, if they don't have a clear consequence, if they don't have a clear line in the sand, then we need to work on one and come back to me, or I'll help you create one.
Right.
Because simply to ask your loved one to go to treatment when you don't have in the back of your mind, if you don't go, I'm willing to do, or I'm not willing to do, it, in my experience, it's not going to be nearly as successful.
Yep.
And that often for families, it's a very challenging place for them to land because they don't think that that's loving.
Right.
Right? And what I tell families is the most loving thing you can do is to speak the truth in love, tell them you're suffering, and offer them a solution.
Right.
So then I say to the person who's reached out to me, do you have a posse? Do you have 3 to 4 people, 5 people with whom your loved one has a relationship, cares deeply enough about what they have to share? Does your loved one care about having a relationship with this person long term? I can't have anyone in the room for whom or with whom the loved one has a massive resentment or has a massive resentment toward. There's no room for resentment or shame or blame or any condemning language. This is a love meeting. Nothing but compassion and empathy. They may not have it at this moment because they may be kind of sort of done, but we're going to at least pretend for this meeting, and we're going to prepare for that meeting by having one-on-one conversations with me, and I'm going to help you go down memory lane. You're literally opening up your photo album, and you're going to remember beautiful times that you've had with this person way before this person picked up or began struggling with mental health challenges. And we're literally going to share those memories with your loved one because that person has forgotten. That person has forgotten who they are at their core, how much they're loved, how much they have been affirmed and appreciated in their life by this circle of friends and family. So I help the family members, friends, employers, maybe, literally go down memory lane and pull those up. Remember when we were sailing around the islands and we saw the sunrise and we were drinking coffee and you told me this was like the most incredible moment of your life. We're gonna share those memories with each other and with you.
Yeah.
I love you so much. I'm not willing to sit on the sideline and watch your life implode because of your substance use disorder or your mental health challenges.
Yeah.
I love you too much to let you stay here. And this is how we've shared our lives together.
Yep. Love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. So powerful.
So in that preparation, we do that, and then they set out writing their letters where they put it down in writing.
Now, are you inviting them to the intervention, the person of concern?
You ask a great question because there's so many approaches to interventions. I have kind of sort of created my own approach by what I feel like picking the best out of Arise, and also following Love First with Deborah and Jeff J.
Got it.
I think the way they approach interventions is beyond brilliant.
Right.
So most of the time for me, if this family, if these people have talked about wanting to offer this person a lifeline, it may be very appropriate to invite them. If the family feels as though that person is either going to overuse, harm themselves, perhaps harm someone else, or bolt, then it's more of, we're going to have a coffee.
Yep.
And we're just going to share what's been on our heart, and then you get the floor. And I'm telling you, 99% of the time, the identified person wants to be in the meeting because we as human beings love to be talked about.
Right.
And especially if I know from the get-go that you're going to tell me things that are lovely about me,
Right.
I'm going to want to sit and hear you.
Yeah. 100%.
Rarely had someone up and leave. All I say is, your family is struggling. They feel powerless how to help you. They've asked me to join you. They have a few things they want to say to you. And then if you're willing to listen to them, the floor is yours.
Yeah.
And so we literally go around the circle. We know where everyone's seated. We've had a rehearsal. We've gone through the letters. Everyone's heard each other's letters. So now the healing begins with the family, because there are secrets that perhaps come out in these letters that a person hasn't heard. For instance, just came off an intervention, grandmother, mother of the identified person, shared with me that she was an alcoholic. Ex-husband was an alcoholic. Father to this son was an alcoholic. He died of alcoholism, cirrhosis of the liver, and she was emotionally and physically abused.
He never knew that.
He never knew it.
Wow. Incredible.
She tells me, she starts crying and saying, I've never shared this out loud. I'm getting goosebumps even telling you this. I said, Sally, you need to put it in your letter. Oh, no. It's been under the
We don't
rug.
talk about that. Right.
It's been under the rug for 45 years.
Yep.
Son is 50. Can you put that in your letter?
Yep.
It would be so important
Yeah.
for your son to hear this.
And it really reframes the entire family system, right? It's like
100%.
everything that we've ever known, this whole perception of who we are as a family is false, right?
100%.
And it really kind of is those types of, I feel like that piece of information can really wake somebody up and say, holy cow, and again, it's not, we're not, just trying to work with the client here, we're working with the family, right? And this is a family disease, and that's, I love working with somebody like yourself, because by the time they get to us, they're kind of teed up, and the family is, been coached, and they know what to expect, and they're ready to hold the line. And it's difficult when we get families who don't really understand that concept. That, listen, we're working with you, but we're also working with the family as well, because everybody needs to do some work here, right?
The secrets will kill a family system.
Yep.
They will destroy the fabric in the family. And when she said it out loud, he visibly began to shake all over.
Wow.
As he's been the identified black sheep,
Right.
everybody else has been toeing the line and just living the sort of perfect life. Mom shares this bombshell, and all of a sudden, now mom and son are both sharing in this pain and suffering. Wow. And the empathy now is literally tangible in the room, where son says, oh my gosh, I've known that there was something off in this family. I could feel it. I never knew what it was. And at 50 years old, he hears the secret that mom has been protecting. No wonder he's using. He is literally physically embodying the trauma, the generational trauma, that who knows where it started. I mean, it could have started 3 generations ago, 5 generations ago.
Yep.
The family begins to heal no matter what the identified person chooses for him or herself in terms of his own recovery. The family begins to heal right away. This is a secret that the other brother never knew.
Yeah.
Best friends never knew. Wife never knew.
Wow.
And we're all hearing it, except for me,
Right.
all at the same time.
Incredible.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. Incredible. Incredible.
Can you tell us, Frances, a little bit about what was going on with the family that got them up to that moment of reaching out to you? Like, how did they reach the end of their road?
Great question. Wife, I always fall in love with the family, just so you know. I love this woman so much. I've known her for a whopping 2 months.
Right.
She's incredible.
Well, you get very close to these people, doing this type of work.
You're spending
right?
like months getting to know them.
Well, it just depends on how desperate the crisis is. I've done it in 4 days. This family, this woman, this wife specifically planned it to be post his birthday and post a skiing trip.
Yep.
Some families don't have that kind of time
Right.
because there's too much risk. She thought she could do it. She's been living with it for 5 years. She called me because her therapist, and she lives outside of New York City. I live part-time in New York City. She's been talking to her therapist. Her therapist told her to call me. It took her 6 months to pick up the phone and call me.
Wow.
And the reason she was willing to call me is that she finally realized she was done.
Yep.
And what she said was, I'm living a single parent life in a 2-parent home, and I've never been lonelier.
Yep. Yeah.
This husband, who is just an awesome star, got laid off in COVID, and he's an extrovert, and his world crashed and burned, and he sleeps until 2 p.m. He wakes up just in time to pick up their 10-year-old daughter from school. He's sober for about 4 hours, starts drinking at about 6, and then he stays up until 5. And she said when her daughter, her 10-year-old daughter, came to her after Christmas and said, "Why does Daddy sleep all day? I don't feel safe with him in the car when he picks me up from school." Chill bumps again.
Yep.
Then Mommy knew right then and there.
Yeah.
If I don't do this, I am modeling to my daughter that this is normal.
Yep.
And this is not normal. And Mom knew right then and there to save her daughter, she had to intervene on daughter's behalf
Yeah.
to save the two of them. It's so, it makes me want to weep. I mean, the strength of these families is just, and then we have other families who are really stuck, right?
Yep.
Really, really stuck. And I have those too, but.
Yeah, and it is. I think back to the Arise training, sometimes too. And one of the pieces that I loved that we pulled out of that was, and Dr. Hong actually, uses the genogram quite often with our assessment clients, and it's just so incredible and so powerful to, the genogram is a chart. It's kind of a family tree, so to speak, where we start going generations back and start identifying some of the issues and some of the, the family system issues, some of the individual issues with, generations previously. And what was so cool that I found from it was when the person got sober, the following generations, you saw that break in addiction, right? And you saw that break in the cycle, which is so, so powerful. And, I'm a person in recovery. My wife is a person in recovery. We have 3 daughters. And, I used to say, gosh, chances are one of them is going to have an issue. But, my hope is that we are raising them in a very different household than, a lot of us grew up in, right? And hopefully we can model that behavior. And listen, we're not perfect, and, life happens, and it's tough raising kids these days. But, do you still use a genogram?
I do.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed in looking at that and filling it out, sometimes it's on the fly, sometimes I have longer.
Yep.
And it really begins to clarify itself when I have these one-on-one conversations with every single person in the circle.
Yep.
I require that. I mean, I highly suggest it because I learned so much
Right.
about the family system when I have individual conversations with everyone here. And what I am becoming so clear about is that generational substance use disorder, mental health, trauma is beneath so much of what I see
Yep.
when I enter a family system.
Yep.
And when I started, I didn't understand the power of the generational trauma.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. It's amazing.
If we don't stop the cycle, it just gets passed down.
Yeah. It
Yep.
just
I
continues on and
see it
on. Yep.
all the time, Graham, particularly with the mental health stuff.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
We live what we learn.
Yep.
We live what we learn.
Yep.
Yeah, and as Dr. Hong likes to say, one of my favorite quotes is from you is where there's addiction, there's trauma, and that's the reality of the world these days. And
100%.
I mean, I would say we see it with most, or if not all clients, right?
Totally, 100%. I mean, the family you're talking about. I mean, you just feel the pain and the weight that they've been carrying for generations. And one thing that I learned in my ethics class way back in college was there's a strange good reason for every bad thing that we do. And with all the pain and the weight that this family's carrying, addiction as a way to deal with that pain, it just makes sense.
Mhm.
But there's so much judgment and shame and dysfunction that comes along with it. And, what you're talking about, Francis, sounds like such a relief. Like the people in the family are getting what they've wanted for so long. But what about all the pain and anger that's come along with it at the same time?
And what's so wild, Dr. Hong, is this mother who's been carrying the secret for 45 years, she has congestive heart failure.
Oh gosh.
She's got high blood pressure and she's got high cholesterol. She says that her pain medication costs her 25 grand a year.
Holy.
And I want to know if she had shared that secret 45 years ago and been willing to be vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
with these children and really help the children understand it wasn't her fault.
Yep.
It may not have even been daddy's fault. He has a disease. I have a disease.
Wow.
We can get help for this disease. Would she have less health problems now? Jury is out, but my sense is that trauma lives in the body
100%.
and the body never, ever, ever forgets. In fact, interestingly enough, because it's so fresh in my mind, right? I just got off the plane yesterday.
Yeah.
That the husband said to mom, daughter doesn't know about this, right?
Oh.
She's 10. And in fact, the wife said, no, daughter's actually written you a letter.
She was actually the reason.
She was
The
100%.
spark, right?
100%.
The delusion is strong, right?
The delusion and denial is like the Berlin Wall, truly. And what she asked her husband in that moment, because husband now had heard mom share his letter, she asked, what did you know? Did you know anything at 10?
Yep.
And he said, I knew something was wrong.
Right. Yep.
And so then she asked husband, so what do you think Vivian knows at 10?
Yeah. Yeah.
The body never forgets.
And, and you hear that all the time with, with people that are, trying to, find treatment on their own, is that they need to, they want to keep it a secret, or they don't want this person to know, or they don't want that person to know. And the reality is we're always the last people to know, right? We're fooling ourselves if we think that everybody around us doesn't know exactly what's going on, and in some cases it's, kind of waiting for people to really crash and burn and get willing to seek treatment. But yeah, I mean, I love how you spoke about trauma and, how it's stored in the body. And I mean, I am a huge believer in that, number one. And one of the things that we started doing here at New Waters is really introducing a lot of these holistic modalities, right? And doing, massage, acupuncture, breath work, which has been incredible for our clients. It is hands down their favorite thing that they do here. And that was a big surprise to me, right? So we're, going to be adding more of that type of work. But, it's incredible to see these clients go in and they do a breath work session and they don't have any clue what it is, what it's all about. And they have this like transformational experience. And really what they're doing is they're just releasing that energy, releasing that trauma. And it's kind of a short glimpse into, some of these modalities that we can really utilize that are great tools for us when we're in recovery. But I know that you are a very holistic person and, you believe in all these types of things. So would you elaborate a little bit on that and your work with that?
I will.
Yeah.
So when my card carrying most proud achievement is that I've been a sober mom,
35
which is a
years.
miracle, a miracle. But early on, when my children were infants, I took up yoga. And I'm dating myself because I used a videotape, not a DVD, not a YouTube,
Yep.
a videotape.
Yeah.
And what I had heard in recovery was that the mind was not a welcome place for me to stay for very long. I had no idea what that meant. But a friend in recovery said, you may want to try some yoga. And in the very first Ashtanga class tape that I watched, they taught breath work at the end of class. In Sanskrit, it's called pranayama. Prana meaning breath. It's an ancient word, ancient language. It's not spoken anymore, except in the yoga world. Prana means breath. It means life. And yama means control, control of the breath. And it's actually the fourth limb of this 8-limb practice that is thousands of years old.
Wow.
And I realized that in those early days of parenting and recovery, I was about 5 years sober at the time, that I just needed some grounding practice. And between being challenged to stay in the body, take the mind into the heart, underneath the skin, into the body, be there, be on your mat, breathe, just for 55 minutes while the kids were napping, it began to change my life, truly. And what I realized is this breath work, this mindfulness practice of being right here, right now, observing, noticing with no judgment is literally 5,000 years old. It's probably as old as millennia.
Right.
And we Westerners think we just found it.
Right. Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
And I hear a lot, oh, this facility offers mindfulness and breath work and body work and yoga and same, like this is what I do. I'm a yoga instructor. I teach students how to become teachers.
Right.
And I lead a mindfulness practice. That's the curriculum that I wrote and I teach. It's all about mindfulness. And okay, we're just catching on. And the desert monks, the yogis have been doing it for literally 5,000 years. But we haven't known what we haven't known. And I'm so grateful for the practice. It is at our fingertips. It can be at a stoplight. It can be while we're watching the coffee drip. It can be every time the phone rings. It can be every time we hear a text ding. Literally just to pause and to breathe and notice, what am I believing? Literally, what am I believing right here in this moment? Is my story 10 miles out? Or am I beating myself up for something that happened 10 miles ago? Where my feet are, that's where I am, right here, right now. I'm just here staying with my beloved son, his wife, and 2 precious, just want to say, precious grandchildren. And on Sesame Street, they're learning, I think, from Elmo to breathe.
Wow.
Breathe in, breathe out.
It's about
Breathe
time.
in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out.
Mm-hmm.
It works in schools, it works at 3, and it works at 33 and 63.
100%.
I gotta say though, I think culturally in the West, we have just lost touch with reality. Like we believe that we can work, eat, sleep, wake up, do it all over again, and that is sustainable for decades. But it doesn't work. And what I see happen is our clients do that. They get burned out.
Well, it's the expectation too, right?
Right. It's
Yeah.
like you're
You know?
not normal if
you can't
do this.
Right.
And they burn out. The pain is unbearable, and alcohol becomes that good idea in a bad situation. And then they hit bottom, and so our clients here, when I talk to them, they feel so shocked that they feel better when they actually take care of themselves.
Right.
You know, it's like a mystery has suddenly been solved for them.
Right.
But it's just it goes back to this, what the vibe I was getting from what you were talking about in this family story is that there's this massive reality under the surface that people are just out of touch with. And they are so fortunate to have worked with you, Frances, because you connected them with the truth of their family. And it sounds like such a huge blessing to them that all these things they wanted are finally available to them.
Mm-hmm.
They were so grateful, but it's not me. I am just hands and feet of a higher power.
Yep.
And I just decide I'm walking alongside you and you can do it, because we all need encouragement, guidance, and accountability. And that's what our 3-legged stool is, as our whole family's mantra, is that we're there to guide, encourage, and hold some kind of accountability. And it's not my accountability, it's their accountability to themselves. I just hold the mirror up, hopefully with a little bit of metta, a little bit of loving kindness and empathy. They're doing the heavy lifting. I'm not. I just ask the questions.
Well, I'm blown away by the spiritual realm that you're bringing up. And I've been in situations with clients where you feel that there's the spirit in the room. And I think a lot of the people who are listening or watching would really benefit from hearing a little bit about what it's like to be in the room, and does it result in a moment of decision? And if you could tell us about a time where something like that comes to mind for you.
Well, given that it just happened 24 hours ago, I can tell you about this one. The spiritual life is truly sacred to me. I feel like I've learned everything I know about the spiritual life from the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's not recovery for everyone. I know that. And I'm so grateful that there are other modes of recovery out there, because the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous doesn't float everybody's boat. I happen to have gotten privilege, miracle, to be able to get sober in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I walked into my very first AA meeting in Midtown Manhattan, and I've been sober ever since. And that is not me. That is my higher power having some kind of grace and mercy toward me. And for me, it's the power of the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. They are the most profound pathway toward living a life of contentment and peace and service that I know, and they can be used on top of Patanjali's Eightfold Path, Buddha's 4-step path, smart recovery, refuge recovery. The language that the 12 steps use can be so fluid and so open and so gracious. it makes my heart heavy when I hear somebody saying it's not for me, because I feel like there's a big tent there. But nonetheless, I am passionate about, for me, the fact that staying sober, and I mean really sober, working hard in the interior life to be transparent, to be authentic. I did not live an authentic life when I was using. What I was feeling inside was not what you were getting outside. And that disconnect was the thing that brought me to my knees. Truly. I was imploding. The spiritual life is hugely important to me. And I'm very open with families when I'm working with them, and I'm very open with clients in early recovery as their coach, that I don't care what it is, but it can't be you.
Yep.
It can be your higher self.
Yep.
There's plenty of Buddhist support for the 12 steps of recovery if that's your thing, but it cannot be my own self-will, because my own self-will got me to my knees.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think too that it's also important to highlight that, for me at least, religion and spirituality are very different things, right? And I think that's where a lot of people get hung up, is they think, oh, this is a religious program, or this is that, or they say God, or and it's, again, as you just said, it's very fluid, right? And and it's just a start, right? And you just gotta do your part to believe in something, but I think that puts a lot of people off, and it's always interesting when I'm talking with clients and they say, oh, I went to some meetings and it wasn't for me, I couldn't relate, or yada yada yada, and then my next question is typically like, well, tell me what that experience was really like, because it's inevitably went to a meeting or two and sat in the back and didn't say hi to anybody, and that's not what 12 steps is, right? And typically the reason that we say go to 90 meetings in 90 days is so that you go to a ton of different meetings and you find your people, right? And that's really, it's not, this isn't a sentence, that we're giving you, like, you need to go to a meeting every day. It's for your benefit, so that you can really find your tribe, and that's what it's all about. And I think that it's really unfortunate that like spiritual component puts people off, because it really, like, in order to recover from this thing, we need to have a total psychic shift. And I think that only happens really at the spiritual level, right? We're so disconnected. And it's just such an important element. And I feel like people are just so fearful of talking about it. It's unfortunate.
I also think that substance use disorder and mental health can be so isolating. I think that those diseases are diseases of isolation. And I really believe that we need community.
Connection.
And
Absolutely.
connection. And I 100% agree with you. I have a client now who's been to treatment, living in a sober house in DC, and that was his expectation. Buy the sober house, 90 and 90.
Yep.
Right there on DuPont Circle. And that was the very thing. Find your people.
Yeah.
Because this 30-year-old, I get it. I understand it. His life has come to a crashing halt. He thinks he has literally come to the end of his existence because he has no idea, because the culture is out there presenting it, that if he can't have a drink, well, let's just say it's not a drink. We know that by the time we get to treatment, it's not a drink.
Right.
That he can't have a life.
Yep. That's so hard.
Yeah.
So painful. And if he finds his people,
Yep.
it's not going to take 90 meetings. New York City, Raleigh, New York, they're all over these 20 and 30 somethings, and they're living a life they never imagined.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
And they realize that we can do it without alcohol and drugs.
And, do it in such a dramatic, amazing way too. I mean, that was, I was 26 when I went to treatment for the first time, or really the only time. And, I was super fortunate, and I still say, like, I was touched by the hand of God. When I was about 2 weeks into treatment, I all of a sudden just had this shift, this awareness where I said, okay, I can sit here and say my life is over because I can't use these substances. How am I going to, what's my wedding going to be like? What's my, this, that, and the other thing that I listed off, and, I couldn't possibly do these things without drinking. Right. And I all of a sudden had this awareness that I can, be down and out because of that, or I can just start doing awesome stuff. And I started fly fishing. I started playing more golf, and I just like threw myself into all these different hobbies and things that I'd always dreamt about doing, but I didn't do because I was drinking by myself in a basement in Boston, So, once I like had that kind of shift in perspective, I was like, oh, wow, this, life can be amazing. And then, I go to a ton of concerts, and I just do it differently now, right? I go with the right people, and I don't go to the concert 4 hours before the concert and sit in the parking lot, because nothing good is happening there for me, right? But then now I can remember the concert, which is a whole new thing, which I never did before. But yeah, I mean, I think especially with young guys, and women as well, but I've primarily worked with a lot more young males, and it's just getting them fired up about life again, right? And whatever it is, if it's free diving, spearfishing, fly fishing, whatever they're into, skiing, just getting reconnected with that makes all the difference in the world with these young guys. Yeah.
Agree.
Yep.
So, Francis, with how amazing life can be after recovery, I think a lot of people, they don't know what joy is or happiness is until they've gone through the recovery. But again, people just don't know what they don't know, right? And so, if there are people out there who have a sense like maybe something's not right with my loved one or our family system, like what are some things that are a telltale sign that they would really benefit by working with someone like you? Like, what are some things that they could have noticed a year before they hit rock bottom, or 6 months before they hit rock bottom? What are some signs that they need help?
That's a really good question. What's interesting for me is that by the time I walk in the door for the loved one, that loved one knows exactly what's happening time and time and time again. And 90+%, the loved one in the meeting will say, yeah, I've had a problem, which is often surprising to me because I know how heavy and large and wide denial is. And what's interesting is that families, when they call me, I ask them, how long have you known it was a problem?
Oh,
And
interesting.
inevitably, the longer they talk to me, the longer we're working through the process, writing the letters, having conversations, the longer the usage tends to be. Where, oh, it's just the past 3 months. No, actually, it's been a couple of years. No, actually, it's more like 5 years. No, actually, it started in high school.
Whoa.
And what I often hear from families is, I wish I'd said something then, but I didn't know what to say.
Yep.
And one of the things that I know, and you all know, is that words can be pretty thin, pretty cheap, and often ineffective. We're never going to convince someone that they need to go get help one-on-one.
Yeah.
One-on-one, it will never work. The disease, whether it's mental health and or substance use disorder, will run circles around us.
Yep.
Wow.
So what I often say to families is compassion, compassion, compassion. It takes what it takes. And no matter how bad it's been, we're going to offer a solution today.
Yep.
And who knows whether it would have worked 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 5 months ago. When the family is ready, the teacher arrives. It's the same as when the student is ready, the teacher arrives.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Wow. I love it. Well, this has been a great conversation, and I think you have given us so much great information for families, and hopefully they can reach out to you if they need help. And we will have all of your information, in our clip, in our thumbnail on the website. So thank you so much, Frances, for coming in. This is always such a pleasure seeing you, spending time with
Thank
you,
you both.
and look forward to working with some more clients with you soon.
Yes, yes, likewise. Collaboration. Thank you both so much. It's been a privilege.
Thank you.
Of course. Thanks, y'all.